Hi there, time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us tonight are the Guardian's Jonathan Liew and the Athletic's David Ornstein. Very good evening to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages for you. This is the Guardian. Laboured and Conservative, as Southgate admits the level must be higher. The Metro's back page is England in deep trouble, dreadful against Danes and looking well short of title challenges. The Telegraph lead with Southgate in Shearer firing line as the pundit doesn't hold back in his assessment of England's performance. The Sun follows suit, also picking up on Shearer's comments, the big headline there as well. And the Athletic focus on Harry Kane's substitution as the England manager explains, "We needed energy." OK, we have a lot to dissect. Jonathan Liew is with us, was at the game in Frankfurt. David Ornstein is with us as well. Let's start with a headline that really encapsulates the feeling after that 1-1 draw, shall we, gents? And I'll start with you, Jonathan. In the Metro, England in deep trouble. What was your feeling, having been there and felt it yourself?
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. I mean, it was so bad. I've actually had to come to sit in a dark room. I'm in my hotel in Frankfurt. What I would quibble with is the idea that they're in deep trouble. They obviously have 4 points. They're almost certainly going to qualify. They've got like Slovenia coming up. They will make it to the knockout stages. I don't think that's an issue. And there are not so many great teams in this tournament that we can write them off fully in terms of getting deep into this tournament. I actually challenge anybody who has been watching England for the last 6 months, basically ever since they qualified, and said that performance was unrepresentative of their business side. That is exactly where Southgate's England are. We knew about the problems in midfield. We knew about the shortages in defence. We knew about the basic lack of a left flank. And they played like that. Denmark are a decent team. They were allowed to play football. England were quite lucky not to lose that, I think. And the fact that, I think in a slightly more temperate climate, the fact that they avoided defeat might be seen as something of a positive. But I don't think that's how the next few days are going to go down.
Yeah, David, let's come to you. Gareth Southgate, and to be honest, all of the players as well, after the game, were very honest about the poor performance. But it was worrying, wasn't it? Because the opening game against Serbia wasn't a great performance, and this was a level below that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's not anything particularly new, though, Adam, because I don't think England have won consecutive matches to open up a European Championships campaign. They've often struggled in the group stages of major tournaments. We saw it against the USA at the Qatar World Cup. I was at that match. And it's against Scotland, I think it was, the last Euros on home soil. And I guess if we're to be sympathetic, the group stages are all about just getting through and making it to the last 16. If England win the group, they'll have on paper a kind draw. If they finish as runners-up, then they look like they'll be facing Germany, which would be an awful prospect. But we'd expect them to go through as group winners, and in the next match against Slovenia, and then in the knockout stage, it's on Gareth Southgate and those players to find their rhythm and their form, because it's not there at the moment. And they were pretty brutally honest in their appraisals. Harry Kane, Southgate himself, Alan Shearer on the punditry too, because it's just not good enough. For example, the left side of England's attack at the moment, or defence and attack, is just non-existent. The right side is slightly more threatening. The centre of midfield is not working right now. Harry Kane, of course, got his goal, which is a big boost to him, but he appears not to be at his best in terms of fitness, at least. So there are problems across the team, but this is almost a part of the group stage. The teething problems are not abnormal. And I heard Jordan Pickford speaking after the match and saying what Jonathan pointed out there, that they've got their 4 points, they're top of the group. They need to step it up, and now the onus will be on them all to do so. A slight word of sympathy for Gareth Southgate, given that he's getting an absolute battering in many sections of the public tonight, is that there are players more than capable of performing to a higher level, whatever the instructions Gareth Southgate is giving them, and they're not really doing so yet, but that doesn't mean that they won't as the tournament progresses.
Yeah, Jonathan, Gareth was very honest afterwards, as I mentioned earlier on. He said the team didn't function and that's my responsibility. He understands the fans' frustrations. In terms of the sort of the ground zero sort of feeling of this performance, I suppose it's almost an advantage that it's come early. They can only go up from here.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I wrote in my piece today. That if the upshot of this game is that England manage their expectations a little bit, almost a bit of a reset, because I think they came into this tournament a little bit overhyped, given the results and the form that they showed in the first half of this year, then that might well be the only positive that comes out of this game. I think anyone who saw that knows that a lot of things need to change, and I'm not sure that they are going to, or it's possible to. You're not going to magic a Modric-style passing midfielder out of thin air. Even if they were available, you're not going to magic a left-footed left winger or make Luke Shaw fit when he's not quite match fit yet. So these are long-standing problems. We've seen them in tournaments past. We've seen them over the last couple of years. What they can do, what Southgate can do, is galvanise them, bring the team together. Maybe even kind of make a show of fighting against the adversity that they're in. Because I honestly think that's the only way they're going to progress in this tournament, if they pull together and probably be a little bit more pragmatic as well, because they are giving up a lot of chances and they don't really look like a team who currently knows the formula or exactly how they want to score goals.
David, a line that Gareth Southgate repeated in his post-match news conference, which I wanted to get your take on, and he said that the players have to accept the environment that they're in and they have to walk towards it, almost acknowledging that they have to now deal with this expectation and deal with the pressure, which clearly they haven't necessarily coped with so far in between these two games, considering that the level of performance has dropped.
Yeah, there's a nice piece in the Telegraph, the sort of lead story on their pullout by Sam Wallace, where he touches upon that exact line that Gareth Southgate uses, and it's a bit dark, isn't it? And it doesn't sort of particularly bode well when you hear him say something like that of what might be coming if England don't click. And we know that this is very possibly Gareth Southgate's last tournament in charge of England. His contract expires at the end of the year. But I do think that there's a bigger picture here as well that we've got to consider. England came into this tournament, many of the players who are starting for them, Kieran Trippier, for example, John Stones, Bukayo Saka, even Harry Kane to an extent, weren't either playing matches of football or completing them. And you saw England at the end, they were sort of flat out. The likes of Declan Rice, Kieran Trippier collapsed to the floor. England are top of their group, but they did look drained. The pitch wasn't ideal, and Denmark, credit to them, they played well. But the environment around, they should be capable of coping with it. This is a group that's been together for a fairly long time. Yeah, there's some newer faces in it, but they're not really starting the matches. They're in the wider group and on the bench, and we've not really seen them much so far. And England, this comes with the territory, the scrutiny. Look at all the newspaper back pages, and the coverage is going to be wall to wall in these days ahead leading up to Tuesday and beyond that as well. And it's something that the likes of Kane and Rice and Stones and Pickford are going to have to lead by example. They've got this leadership group. Even Bellingham's within that now to sort of help guide the younger players. Remarkably, at such a tender age, Bukayo Saka's a relatively senior head within the group, and they do have options to try and change it up, whether that's in terms of the formation, because there's a feeling this Trent Alexander-Arnold midfield experiment might have run its course, so perhaps you move him to right back or right wing back and go for sort of 3-5-2 or whatever. And then you've got some talents like Eze, who came on the substitutes. They did okay. Jared Bowen as well, bit of spark of life. Ollie Watkins had a chance too. I think we're all itching to see a bit of Anthony Gordon, maybe even an Adam Wharton, and Cole Palmer in particular. So that environment that you talk about can be lifted, and the spirit and the siege mentality Jonathan touches upon, but they've got to deliver. We can talk all we want, but at the moment they're not delivering, and they need to do so. Otherwise, they've got no chance in this tournament.
Now, Jonathan, obviously you're out there in Germany. For people that were watching in the UK, they will have seen the pundits watching and the co-commentator for the game, Alan Shearer, being very, very critical of the performance. It's one of the stories that's featured in the inside pages of the Telegraph. Brutal and brilliant. Shearer has become the voice of the nation. England were dreadful against Denmark, and Alan Shearer spoke for everyone with his criticism. And it's levelling, two former teammates against each other. But Shearer was very open, very honest, and very forthright with his criticisms.
Do you remember when Shearer was the most boring pundit on telly? It was it was just after he retired, and he still hadn't quite learnt the ropes of telly, and he was just sort of. I know he's a colleague of yours, David, at the Athletic, so I'll go easy on him. But I think he was quite right in the points that he made. Specifically, he was talking about the England press, and Southgate said they didn't press that well. Kane was saying that they didn't quite know how to press, and obviously, if you don't have the midfield following up, then the front three are just wasting energy. I think that's totally correct. I think the fact that they don't know what they're doing is a factor of quite a few things. There is obviously a lot of physical fatigue after what for a lot of them will have been incredibly strenuous club seasons. There's the mental fatigue of that, and also there's the fact that just this team hasn't really been drilled. It hasn't been drilled and practiced, and Southgate hasn't really had the chance to get those patterns and combinations right in a way that he maybe was ahead of, for example, the Russia World Cup or ahead of Qatar. So I think that is a factor. Southgate isn't telling his players to go 1-0 up and then drop back 15 yards. That is clearly that's clearly a natural reaction. I don't think they even realise that they're dropping back. I think they're conserving their energies, and I think it's Southgate's job to remind them of what a successful tournament blueprint, a successful blueprint for a tournament side is. And I'm not sure we've seen the evidence in this tournament that he's capable of doing that yet.
It's interesting. One of the other pundits that was working on the live coverage, Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager, almost spoke in mitigation and was speaking on your point, Jonathan, and David, I'll put that to you, that, Gareth Southgate hasn't had an opportunity to drill these players, and how many times have they played together? Yes, you can bring in whether it was the right selection, but I suppose it is mitigation that maybe they look disconnected because they don't necessarily know each other very well.
Yeah, it is interesting hearing that outside perspective from Thomas Frank because, firstly, he's very intelligent, erudite, articulate, but we get consumed by it, of course, because we're in and amongst it, and maybe we're our harshest critics, understandably so. But when you look at that squad that you touch upon there, the two warm-up matches, obviously there were the March friendlies as well. I guess everybody's in the same boat, but it was quite a radical squad selection. The likes of Jack Grealish and James Maddison, Jordan Henderson, Harry Maguire, all experienced campaigners who are used to the style and a number of major tournaments that Gareth Southgate has overseen, always being a part of it, not so much in the case of Maddison and Grealish. But they're two players who, if I refer to another pundit who was on tonight, Gary Neville, he was talking about how some of the most successful nations have these ball-playing midfielders, somebody that can dictate the tempo a bit, and England don't really seem to have that player in the middle of the pitch. And Gareth Southgate sort of elected to go with sort of quicker players who can go beyond Harry Kane rather than the ball players, and so it is a little bit of an embryonic squad that is trying to gel while we're all expecting them to win. And it may click. But at the moment, the signs aren't particularly good. It will be really interesting to see if Southgate changes it up. He pointed in his post-match comments to, not having somebody like Calvin Phillips, which I think has gone down very badly with the public. I do get his point in terms of the fact that somebody sitting in there, he was arguably England's player of the tournament at the last Euros. And England do miss a player of that sort of mould, clearly. And that's going to have to be something they think about as they go forward, because he is still trying to sort of formulate this group of players while trying to win a tournament. It is not an easy task.
OK, David, Jonathan, thank you very much for now. We're going to just take a quick break, and then when we come back, we will look at more of the back pages, and our focus will turn to the captain, Harry Kane. We'll delve into this article in The Telegraph as Jason Burt claims the striker needs to lead the line better. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to The Guardian's Jonathan Liew and The Athletic's David Ornstein. Let's get stuck into this article in the Telegraph, and it centres on the captain, Harry Kane. Obviously, it had looked to be heading towards a good night for him. Obviously opened his account in the tournament with the goal. But this headline there, this must be a warning to Kane that England need more, from Jonathan Burt. Jonathan Liew, your take on Harry Kane's performance and what more he needs to do?
Yeah, obviously he scored. I mean, it's slightly fortuitous, but he was in the right spot, and obviously he gave the ball away for Denmark's equaliser. I think the main problem is that everybody in that side wants to be number 10. Everyone on that side wants to be the star. Kane wants to be the number 9 who also drops back and is a number 10. Bellingham wants to be the number 10. Foden wants to be the number 10. It kind of reminds me of when Everton signed Davy Klaassen and Gylfi Sigurdsson and Wayne Rooney and tried to play them all at once. I think, maybe we'll come to this later, but I think part of the issue is that there isn't the same rigidity or structure that there was in previous Southgate teams. And partly that's because of the makeshift options and the preparation time that he's had. But I do think he's tried to be a little bit looser, and I think we could just say it hasn't worked. We have players trying to play in the same space. We have Foden coming over to the right wing from the left wing and leaving a huge gap behind him. We have Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has a huge amount of space to cover and isn't getting the protection that he needs. So yeah, I think you have huge imbalances all over the pitch. And Kane, obviously, as the captain and the talisman, he's trying to fight fires, all over the pitch. He's trying to defend at set pieces. He's trying to be the creator. He's trying to be the playmaker. He's trying to be the guy on the end of crosses. So you have a load of guys who haven't been drilled well enough or enough to play in this kind of free form style, all essentially trying to be the guy who does the great thing. And I just, it's clearly not working at the moment because they are finding themselves in all kinds of trouble.
On Harry Kane's performance, David, do you think that this is repairable? Do you think maybe the extra day that they're going to have before the game against Slovenia, they can fix this? They can get that initial press sorted?
Yeah, well, on Kane specifically, we've seen enough of him to know that he will grow into a tournament, and he hasn't always started them in spectacular fashion. And normally by the end of it, Russia World Cup, I think it was, where he ended up as the top scorer, and I think he's now England's top scorer in major tournaments. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so I think we shouldn't be writing off Harry Kane. Gareth Southgate was talking about the players not lacking in effort. I completely agree with that. He said that they're probably trying too hard. And to Jonathan's point, with Harry Kane dropping so deep, you saw his touch map and where he spent most of his time. It was in the middle of the pitch. And when he gave the ball away for the equaliser, he was in England's left-back position. He had one touch, I think it was, in the opposition box, and that was his goal. So, yeah, there needs to be a sort of recalibration of his own positioning and that of the players around him who are meant to be getting beyond him, and they're not doing so at the moment. There's an image going around showing Phil Foden, who had a shot where he could have played Harry Kane through, and it's little tweaks like that need to be made. in terms of the dropping deep, Jamie Carragher in the Telegraph talks about how it's not so much an instruction from Gareth Southgate. And Southgate said after the match, when he was asked on television, do you instruct them to drop deep when you go a goal up? And he sort of bridled at that. He said, absolutely not. But Carragher was saying that that's a result of exhaustion, that they're tired. It's been a long season. They're clearly out on their feet there, and that may lead to some changes, or they'll just have to galvanize to go again, because there's something in them that is causing them to drop back after scoring, and that's not going to bode well as the tournament goes on. They'll get blown away by better opposition if they keep doing that. And we've seen England, in recent times, they've beaten Italy a couple of times. They've gone toe-to-toe with some of the biggest teams under Gareth Southgate. Germany, we'll remember as well. France, it was a narrow defeat. If Kane's penalty had gone in at the World Cup, it would have probably been a very different story. So they've got it in them to attack and be on the front foot, and they somehow need to recapture that, starting with Slovenia.
Jonathan, pop yourself into Gareth Southgate's shoes and tell me what you would do for this final group game. What changes would you make?
Probably resign. I don't know. I mean, he should have gone off to Qatar. I think it's got stale. I think what I would do is probably try and go back to basics. I would try and shore up that midfield a little bit, and above all, I would try and make this a little bit more fun. I mean, the best Southgate, 2018, 2021 Southgate, was when there wasn't the expectation on him, and he wasn't putting the expectation on himself to win a tournament. And by sheer coincidence, those were the tournaments in which England did best, because that environment was fun to be around, and they weren't fixating on they have to win this, they have to win this. And now, obviously, he's nearer the end than the beginning. He might go off this tournament, and he's kind of fixated on his legacy. He wants to win something before he goes. I think if he just lets that go, just accept the fact that you might end your England career, and you might be the latest in a long line of England managers that doesn't win a trophy, and be fine with that, and just try and enjoy the journey. And you'd be amazed how far that kind of mindset can take a team, ironically.
That was inspirational, Jonathan, to end Back Pages tonight. Really appreciate your time. David Ornstein, thank you very much as well to you. Just to let you know, if you missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour, and the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can join us again on Friday night at 10:30, when our guests will be Charlie Wyatt and Roger Hannah.